What's going on, everybody? Here today with another Bodhi True mental health video. On this channel, I talk about my own journey to severe mental illness, mainly OCD and severe chronic anxiety. Wanted to do a little video today talking about the PFS crash and what I think that it really is. And this video is really inspired by a conversation that I had recently with someone who watches my channel and says, hey, listen, what you talk about on your channel makes a lot of sense, but all right, I was believing it for a while, but I'm going through the PFS crash. I'm actually going through it right now personally. And so I wanted to talk about really what I told him and what I really believe this PFS crash to be. See, anxiety and OCD, the main thing that keeps this going is this constant reassurance, this constant narrative in the head, in the mind about how everything's going to be okay and everything's going to be all right. And this type of coping strategy by internally trying to control how you feel, what's going on around you. And so you're reassuring yourself, trying to figure it out, trying to calm yourself down, trying to tell yourself everything's going to be all right. And this is a very common compulsion. All people with OCD pretty much suffer from some version of this type of narrative in the head around feeling okay, feeling all right. When people start to experience symptoms from taking finasteride, most people now are somewhat aware when they get on the drug of side effects, and then maybe some people, they start to feel different, they start to feel weird, start to experience symptoms, but maybe they're mild, or maybe they're just enough that it's starting to disrupt their life. So they go online, they start to do more research, and when they come across all of these stories around post-finasteride syndrome and PFS and all of this type of stuff, they say, oh, I need to go off this drug, because this drug is good. There's so many people that's suffering from it. I'm really running a risk here. I'm experiencing symptoms. Hopefully I'll be like most people and I just get off the drug and I recover and I feel better. And what happens is that people that get off the drug, they feel better for a period of time, 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, they feel way worse, and it seems like they have more symptoms than ever. What this is referred to is the crash. And so I wanted to talk about this. Why do people have this PFS crash? I mentioned this narrative that people have in their head, constantly reassuring themselves that everything's going to be all right. See, whenever you try and cope, control, or avoid how you feel, all right, you are feeding your mental health problems, because you're not facing your fears. You're not facing reality. You're trying to relieve. In a way, it becomes so natural to continue on with these narratives, with this behavior, this internal mental behavior. And so this feeds the mental illness. And whenever people stop taking finasteride, it's very understandable that they may feel better because they avoided it. They feel that, hey, I'm not on it anymore. It was just a thing. Most people recover. Maybe this isn't even real. I'm going to get better. Whatever reassurance it is that people are talking about in their head, this works for a while. So they feel better for a period of time. Maybe they feel better than they ever have. Whew, what a relief. Dodged a bullet there. Feel better than I was. Symptoms going down. Maybe finasteride syndrome isn't that real after all. Maybe I'll be okay. Dodged a bullet. And what happens is that all of a sudden, bam, all these symptoms drop on you. They say, whoa, I'm experiencing the crash. I'm experiencing all these symptoms. I'm fucked up. I'm worse than I ever was. And so what this is, in my opinion, is that when you have anxiety, you have OCD, you're on a one-way train to basically disability. Basically, once OCD really develops, you really develop OCD and anxiety, it's just a downward spiral to the bottom. It's not until you get to that bottom a lot of times that people realize, in other forms of OCD, anxiety, not until they hit that bottom that they realize, oh shit, this is a serious problem. I have a full-blown serious mental illness. The problem with people with PFS is that they're so convinced that they have PFS, and the KISS community and everything else, people become so convinced that they have this PFS that they just won't acknowledge what they have. They have a severe mental illness, and it's severe. People may think that, hey, you're making light of PFS. No, what you're experiencing is really mental illness. You're extremely sick. This is a serious problem. I'm not downplaying PFS. I'm actually just telling you, I could tell you that this is actually worse news. I mean, you're mentally ill. I mean, I don't know what else someone would want to hear. I don't know why people would defend post-finasteride syndrome, except for the fact that they're convinced for it. They're obsessed with it. They're convinced of it. They're convinced of everything in their head. But it's not like something like, it's just anxiety. Like, it's not like that. So when people spiral to this bottom pit, like when I had OCD, my main crash didn't come from this PFS fear. It came from a couple other fears. And they were so obviously outrageous that I knew there was something wrong. I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize what exactly was going on. But I knew that I was struggling with my mental health at this point, because what I was obsessing over was so bizarre that I realized, hey, I have a mental health problem. But like I said, what happens with PFS is that because there's this community, because it seems to be this circumstantial evidence around PFS, people don't make the right conclusion. If someone with OCD starts to get all these thoughts about stabbing people, about being a pedophile, about having, randomly getting AIDS, or randomly, all these crazy thoughts, they will be convinced of them. But they will also know, a lot of people will also know, hey, there's something wrong with me. Like, this isn't normal. Like, I know I wouldn't do this, but I know this isn't really how it is, but with PFS, people don't get that. So when they crash, they think that, well, this is PFS. So the truth is that basically the crash is just this crash. And this is when people really can consider themselves, mentally ill. A lot of people have anxiety and OCD tendencies. I call this subclinical. They go through life with poor mental health, but they don't crash. They don't experience chronic anxiety. It doesn't completely control and dictate their life. So they may not meet the criteria for a mental health condition. When somebody crashes with their mental health and they're no longer able to function and they're no longer able to carry on a normal life, this is called severe clinical mental illness. This is what it is. You're mentally ill now, in a substantial way. You are. There's no difference. In fact, in maybe some ways, it is no less severe than, say, someone that has schizophrenia. It's debilitating. So this crash is just this onset of severe chronic mental health. You're no longer able to cope, to control, to avoid anxiety anymore. Your mind has went so far off that you can no longer play with it and get it back to where you can no longer rid yourself of these feelings of anxiety and despair and guilt, shame, or whatever you're feeling. You're no longer able to get those away. Your compulsions are no longer working. And so this is the crash. So I hope that this video finds you well. Please like, share, and of course subscribe. Peace, y'all.